Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Mr. Lord.
Well, thank you, and I couldn't possibly cover all the many ideas and things I've been working on for more than a decade on this front. So you'll have to go to my webpage for a more thorough discussion, johnwood.ca. Let's just say that I don't look at the affordable housing issue as just a homelessness issue. I'm looking at young people and senior citizens that are also struggling. So I've been working on numerous ideas on that front, not just the homeless. I did serve 3 years on the Homeless Foundation, which I'm very pleased to see is promoting secondary suites, which was my idea when I was there, to get them to back that, and they have, so thank you for that, Tim. I was also working on the other side of the equation, though, which is to grow wealth. Obviously, if you have a very strong economy and jobs, that would address the poverty issue, the affordable housing issue as well. And of course, many ideas on that. The living wage idea, well, I was the first politician in this nation that I know of to suggest the EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit, which has lifted millions out of poverty in other jurisdictions, and we still don't have it in this nation. I addressed the homeless issue on a number of fronts, Victoria Park, Sonalta. I worked on that for years. I've stayed in the drop-in center myself to get a first-hand look so I knew what I was talking about when I discussed this issue. And frankly, I agree with my worthy opponents here that it's vital to keep a good relationship with the province. And of course, having been an MLA, I know most of them personally, so I think that would be a very important thing to have in the next mayor going forward. So I'm working on this on a number of fronts. There's no magic bullet. It all works a little bit, and I think you have to attack it on a number of fronts, both addressing the supply issue, but also addressing the wealth issue so that people could afford the housing that's out there. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lord. Mr. McIver.
Thank you. I think one thing we have to understand in finding solutions, for me, one size doesn't fit all. And I think that's what you need your mayor to understand. Some people just need more money, a better job. Other people need social support. Other people need different kinds of support. I think we need to work in partnership and collaboration with the Homeless Foundation, with Trinity Homes, with other providers of housing. I think we need to maximize the value of the Attainable Housing Company of Calgary, which I supported. The Tranquil Homes, a private sector partner, is doing a peak homes program to provide homes that are affordable for people in jobs that aren't yet making a lot of money. These are things that we have to push. These are things that don't necessarily cost a lot more tax dollars if you use the private sector. I think you need a mayor that's thinking that way. I think we need to look at making sure that people prepared to give land get very favorable tax treatment. And that's part of working in a partnership with the provincial and federal governments that have authority over that legislation. I have a good relationship with the provincial government. I'm not the only one that's running here that has spent several years on AUMA working with the provincial government. I think one of the things we have to do is cut some red tape, faster approvals. You know, I talked to a builder developer recently that told me I can get approval for a single family home in this development in about 4 days, and I've got a multifamily that's been waiting months and it hasn't been approved yet. Well, what are we doing? If that's the case, we need to get better at that. I'm not saying we give easy approvals, but if they do the job right, approve them. If they don't, say no. Because all the time that we make that wait makes the housing more affordable for real Calgarians that need real homes. And I'm looking to solve that problem. And the problems that I don't have, as mayor, I intend to listen because I've never thought I have ideas.
Thank you, Mr. McIver. Mr. Nenshi.
You know, it's great to hear all of these solutions around this table, and I applaud all of these gentlemen for really being thoughtful about this. I think the challenge is how do we put all these pieces together? And we'll be introducing policy soon that really, as I suggested, operates at 3 levels. You have the big picture policy level, at the area of practice, and at the area of perception in the community of these things. So very briefly, at the policy level, many of us have suggested that we need to legalize secondary suites subject to some constraints. I already have a policy that I would suggest on that. The city of Edmonton did it after the election in 2007, and it hasn't blown up. The city's still there, nice place to live, lousy hockey team, they can't help that. But it worked, and we have to look to these things. The second is mandatory inclusionary zoning. Quick story. A year ago, January, City Council directed administration to write a memo to the province asking for the ability to do mandatory inclusionary zoning. They gave administration a deadline in June to write this memo. January to June takes a long time to write a memo, especially if there's double drafts. Nothing has happened since then. I phoned over to Municipal Affairs, and they said not only have they never heard from the city of Calgary on this issue, but as far as they were concerned, the city had the ability to do inclusionary zoning, they just needed to do it. This is how the system is broken. We get ourselves caught up in every single secondary suite going to city council instead of looking at the big policy issues. In the area of practice, right, we need to implement some of the stuff in the 10-year plan, which the gentleman to my left can tell you a lot more about, to end homelessness. We do need to cut red tape, especially for new apartment construction. We need to look at areas where the city has land, like surplus school sites, and encourage private donors to create land trusts, and we need to work with the private sector to create apartment housing that is not subsidized. We don't always need government. We don't always need subsidy. We just need stocks. We've got to make that happen. And if you're able to do this throughout the city, that's where we start to hit the issues of perception. I can talk until I'm blue in the face, and I could, about how every study has shown that affordable housing in neighborhoods does not decrease market values. In fact, it sometimes increases them. But before we do it, before we ensure that this problem is in everybody's backyard, not just in some people's backyard, it'll be hard for us to overcome those community issues.
Thank
So
you
we
for
need
that,
to do
Mr.
all of
Nancy.
those things together. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart.
Thank you. I don't know whether that the gentleman on my left was a shot or what. But here's some. It's not a gentleman. I will immediately set to work on land use, secondary suites, and partnerships. I will fill gaps in the city's enterprise housing program where they exist and implement the entire program. I will initiate a review of all city land holdings for the potential for affordable housing, work with the private and nonprofit sector partners to implement the most cost-effective way to increase rental housing, in particular subsidized rental units through incentives such as reduced parking requirements and property tax relief designed to lower development costs, and ownership through inclusionary zoning and density bonusing with private sector partners, developers, making the planning and approval process quicker and more efficient. I will improve relationships, as others have said, with the province and Ottawa to ensure that Calgary gets its share of the funding. I will review the city's role as developer and owner-operator and ensure best value in comparison to the private sector and nonprofit sector. I will work on secondary suites, a couple of things, providing an amnesty for the 50,000 plus illegal suites with a grant program to bring them to code. These have existed for years with no conditions, often inadequate and unsafe, without community concerns. And I will ensure that approval of condo conversions will take account of the impact on rental availability. I will improve the efficiency of the application process so that our admin people are clear and the frustration felt by them and by people planning a suite, meeting the conditions only to be denied, is gone. I will establish a short-term target to identify locations for needed facilities. For example, right now, the John Howard Society building critical elements of the affordable housing mix. We will make a decision and we will implement. The key is to get on with it, to implement. Calgarians have given us any number of good ideas. We've got some more today, and it's nice to see there are now 9 affordable housing advocates in the city. We don't need a new batch of ideas. We simply must do it.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.